Channel open. Welcome back to Weekly Trek, a Star Trek news podcast presented by TrekCore.com. I am your host, Alex Perry.
What's today's date? The date.
Today's show was recorded on December 18th, 2025, and is current through Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3, so beware of spoilers. Alright, let's get into the show.
Good day, Voyager, and welcome to A Briefing with Neelix. It's a catchy title, isn't it?
Weekly Trek is a regular news show covering the biggest stories from the Star Trek franchise. We are in the Alex Kurtzman era of Star Trek with the 12th television show currently in production and 14 movies to enjoy, and merchandise continuing to fill the Bajoran wormhole. So stick with me and I'll help you sort the real facts from lots of the Dominion propaganda that you'll find online. But I can't do this alone, and my guest this week is returning guest Sam Nelson. Sam, welcome back to Weekly Trek.
Thank you, Alex. It's good to be back. It's been a little while, so it's exciting to get back onto Weekly Trek again.
All right, Sam, well, you know the drill. I want to know something's got you excited about Star Trek at the moment. What's got you moving at Warp 10?
Well, for me, it's the year in review. So
yes, sir.
For 2025, I'm looking backwards. And like I said, it's been a hot minute since I've been on the show. I went back and looked. The last time I was on the show,
February.
Section 31 had just come out.
Yeah.
So, and it's hard for me to believe that was this year. It seems like it was like 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
It seems like it was never ago.
Never ago. I love that. So for me, looking back on 2025, there's been some great stuff. Obviously, I love Season 3 of Strange New Worlds. I was on the Trek Ranks recap of Season 3 because I'm an unabashed fan of everything that came out, even 4.5 Vulcans I loved. So for me, that was a high watermark of the year. I have really dove into the books and reading.
Oh yeah,
Star Trek this year. I've gotten a lot of those every month when Simon and Schuster puts out the 99-cent deals. I've been blowing up. I'm deep into the Vanguard series, which I bought years ago.
Very nice.
And never read. So I'm on book 5 of that. I've got a huge stack of real world paper books. A buddy of mine was going through his collection, and I'm looking at a stack next to me, probably 15 deep of different stuff that I've got to read. So I'm deep into reading. And lastly, what's got me excited, Alex, don't beat me with a rubber hose. I have never rewatched Discovery. I watched it when it came out.
Yep.
And besides an odd episode here or there, I've never gone back and rewatched it. But I rewatched season 1 a couple weeks ago, and I watched it within like 3 days. And it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I liked Discovery, but I'd never loved it. But man, season 1 is a banger of a season. And it's got me diving right into season 2. And I think I gave it a little, in my head, a little short shrift. And now, just like every good Star Trek fan, I'm going back and rediscovering the classics. And for me, Discovery Season 1 is a phenomenal piece of Star Trek work. And I'm glad I've taken the time to put that on my rewatch list.
What's been your favorite book that you've read this year?
Really, the Vanguard series has caught me great. I have enjoyed all 4.5 books through that. Every year, I always reread How Much for Just the Planet by John Ford. It's my favorite Star Trek novel.
Sure.
I can read it within a couple days and just eat that thing up. So for me, it's really getting to the Vanguard series. It's been fantastic, and I'm looking forward to getting in. I got the series of the Dominion War that stretched across, I think it's a TNG DS9. So I've got that series that I'm going to go to next. So just kind of getting back in. I really want to slow down and enjoy some reading. It's something that I used to do when I was younger and I got away from it, but I gave up TikTok and I don't do Facebook and all that other stuff. So what do I do with my time? Let's just read. And I'm loving every minute of it.
Old school and intellectual. Although not that my mother would agree with you, because when I was a kid growing up and all I wanted to read was Star Trek books, she insisted that I had to I could only read a Star Trek book after I had read a non-Star Trek book.
Oh, that's a killer.
Was tough. Yeah, that was really tough. But I did it just to get to the next Star Trek book. And it's funny you say that on Discovery stuff. It's been several years since I last rewatched anything from Discovery, because it's been a few years since I've last done sort of a big like franchise rewatch or really rewatching any of the particular shows. But the last time I did watch it, I mean, it is funny how much sort of vibes and conventional wisdom about something sort of becomes very present in your mind, and then you actually experience it again and you're like, oh, this is not anything close to what people said it was, right? Like
exactly.
So yeah, I mean, I do think Discovery suffers a bit from that there's sort of just a general perception about the show that is maybe not necessarily justified by the actual show itself.
I could not agree more.
And so that's year in review. What hype rankings for 2026? What are you most looking forward to?
Can we save that for the end?
Oh, we sure can. Oh, love that. Yes, we absolutely can. All right, so that's a good little teaser for the end of the show. All right, so let me tell you what I'm feeling good about Star Trek this week, and because it is the Christmas season. And on the Christmas season, we tell that no, I'm not going to go that. I'm not going down that path. I want to talk about Hallmark Christmas ornaments, and particularly, I want to talk about my favorite 3 Hallmark Christmas ornaments, which all have one particular thing in common: the DS9 Runabout, the Shuttlecraft Galileo, and the Borg Cube. Why are those my 3 favorite Hallmark Christmas ornaments? Well, because all 3 of them have a little holiday message that plays when the lights come on the tree. So these are the old style Hallmark Christmas ornaments. I mean, the new style ones barely light up, let alone, what the old style ones did. But in the days of incandescent bulbs on trees and the incandescent light strings, Hallmark made their ornaments with these little plug-in attachments where you could then plug it into the tree and it would light up, and some of them have like little voice clips that go along with it. And I have the Runabout plugged into my tree at the moment. It's my favorite to have plugged in every year, although I switched to LEDs like last year, so I had to go out and buy one of those ridiculously expensive aftermarket like adapters that Hallmark sold for a couple of years so that you could continue to, it's basically its own string of like 4 little boxes that you can plug the old style ornaments into so that they light up. And the Runabout ornament, so when I go to bed at night, you turn off all the lights, turn off the tree, and then when I get up in the morning, I turn on the tree, and so it all comes to life. And from the Runabout, Worf says, "I wish you a most honorable holiday, Kapla." And it just tickles me every time. Absolutely tickles me every time. And when I bought it, I didn't realize it did that. So this was sort of 5 or 6 years ago. I was buying a few of the Star Trek Christmas ornaments. I like the way they look on the tree when they're lit up. One of the things I think really sucks about the Monday ones is like you got to press a button on the ornament and then the lights come on for like 10 seconds and then they go off again. And unless you press the button again, the lights don't come on again. Like the fun thing about the old style ones is you just plugged them in and they were just on. So I it was like, I think it was like a Deep Space Nine anniversary year. So I was like, oh, I've got a few Deep Space Nine ones. I'll pull the Deep Space Nine ones out. I've got the Defiant, I've got Cisco, I've got the Runabout, plug the Runabout in, and it speaks to me, and I'm like, oh, this is the best thing ever. Well, and weirdly at the time, I was then not like, ooh, I wonder if any of the others do this. It was only this year that I kind of had the thought, well, if the Runabout has a holiday message, do any of the others have a holiday message? And there are 2 others that do. The Shuttlecraft Galileo, where Spock says, "Shuttlecraft to Enterprise, Spock here, happy holidays, live long and prosper." And then the Borg Cube, which says something like, "We are the Borg, happy holidays, resistance is futile." And I just think that's really fun. It just brings me so much joy every day when I turn on my tree to have Worf wish me a most honorable holiday, Kapla. It's the highlight of every morning during the Christmas season. And so that's what's got me feeling good about Star Trek this week.
That is the most holiday cheerful thing. And the fact that the Borg are still wishing you happy holidays says a lot about their character.
I mean, I'm such a pathetic person because like every morning it's like turn on the lights. I wish you a most honorable holiday. And it makes me laugh every time. It makes me feel joy every time. The joy of Christmas caused by Worf and his little holiday message. Thad let me know that the Delta Flyer has Janeway. And I was like, oh, does she have is it a holiday message? But it's not. She's just, doing some like line from the show, I think. But it's not like a specific holiday message. So
major missed opportunity.
Major missed opportunity. That's what Hallmark needs to bring back. They need to bring back plugging it in so that you can have it lit up all the time, and they need to bring back putting little audio clips on the ornaments, but not just any audio clip. I don't want a line from the show. If I want a line from the show, I'll watch the show. I want a corny Christmas message in a Star Trek wrapping. I wish you a most honorable holiday, Kapla.
I only have one that plugs in. I have an Enterprise E that plugs in.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
Yes, and that's the only one that I have that plugs in. All the rest now I think I have to change all their batteries. Like I only hung one of them up this year because the rest I need to change batteries. And they're the tiniest child-killing batteries that you need to find to go replace.
Yeah, they stopped doing it in the early, it was probably 1999, 2000, 2001 were the like last ornaments that they put out. All the others have since then, they don't plug in, and if you want them to light up,
Yes.
you have to press the button. All right, well with that, let's turn to the week's top stories.
There's a war going on, and I'm a reporter.
Well, Star Trek Strange New Worlds is close to wrapping filming on its 5th and final season, with cast members slowly posting on social media over the last week to announce that they've completed their work on the series. Celia Rose Gooding, who plays Uhura, Christina Chong, who plays Laan Noonien Singh, Martin Quinn, who plays Scotty, and Jess Bush, who plays Nurse Chapel, have all taken to social media in recent days to announce their completion of work on Strange New Worlds. It'll be a while before Season 5 hits screens. Season 4 is scheduled to debut sometime in 2026, but the closure of the show leaves one active Star Trek production shooting in Toronto as Starfleet Academy continues work on its second season. Will a new show replace Strange New Worlds, and will Starfleet Academy continue beyond Season 2? Those are the big questions as we head into 2026, with little word from new Skydance owners of Paramount about their vision for Star Trek on Paramount+. Sam, what was your reaction to learning that Star Trek Strange New Worlds' final season is close to wrapping filming?
Well, no matter what happens in the future, I mean, I've listened to the long-time listener to this show, and you talk to Star Trek fans, and there's hope out there for a year one. But no matter what happens, we've gained a great group of actors and new fans into the world of Star Trek because of Strange New Worlds. And I'm just glad that they're getting a properly done send-off, that it doesn't feel like a rush job. Right? It was planned out, hopefully written out to a good conclusion. And it seems like this cast, if you read the Instagram post or you read what they're saying and how they're reacting to wrapping it up, that it's going out on a great high for them. So I'm happy as a fan to get to pick up and watch what they're doing. But then it also makes me happy that they're sad about it, and not in a bad way, but they're happy that it happened, and there's some emotions there for them. So I just, as a Star Trek fan, it just makes me proud of the work they've done and happy with what they've created. And it makes me a little sad, of course, that the show's going to end, but I'm glad they get to go out on their own terms, and those characters and those actors that have put a lot into it get to go out on their own terms.
Yeah, I mean, the weirdness sort of continues of talking about the end of the show when there's still 16 more episodes to go, which is about half as many episodes again as there are already of Strange New Worlds, right? Mm-hmm. Still a lot of Strange New Worlds left to go, but the 5th season is wrapping filming, and that will wrap production on the show. I mean, there's months of post-production to do, and even the actors aren't finished because they've got to come back and do ADR for, episodes where they need to tweak the audio slightly. So they're not like done, but in terms of being in Toronto for 6 months to film a season of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, that is coming to the end for these actors. And it must be very bittersweet for them in the same way that it's bittersweet for us as fans. And also, has that weirdness of they're in a very different place emotionally about Strange New Worlds right now than the fan base is. In the era of Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager, you were finishing filming the show, only like a couple of months before it was on the screen. And so if you're processing an emotional experience of this thing ending, you film all good things and wander off there. Is probably not a good example because they went straight the next week into filming Generations. If you're filming What You Leave Behind and walking off the set, you're having a deeply emotional experience about that. And the fans are having that emotional experience too, because they're in the back half of watching season 7 and, the end's coming up for them as well. But now it's like you finished Strange New Worlds season 5, had this emotional experience and, sort of like mourned the fact that it's over in December of 2025, and then you're not going to have the chance to talk about it and talk about it publicly until probably summer of 2027, which is 18 months from now. So it's just sort of that weirdness of modern television production that, these things are on such a they're so off kilter in terms of
Sure.
the way the audience experience something versus the people who make it.
Yeah, you bring up a good point about that gap between processing of what they go through and what we go through. So we can, as fans, we can see this now and kind of begin to feel sad about it. But to the other side of that, we still have 16 episodes to come over the next 2 years to enjoy. So you could have a little, I guess, a little feel bad moment. But knowing that we still got a lot of Star Trek Strange New Worlds to go, and probably some of I'm going to guess, because I've loved every bit of it so far, that it's really I'm hoping that it goes out on just as strong as it came in, and we've got a great arc to finish out on. But I think it's just, there's no other word for it. It's just really cute the way that the cast is sharing photos in the photo albums and really just kind of saying their goodbyes to characters that I think most of us hope that they come back and we see Celia Rose Gooding as Uhura again in some form or fashion.
Yeah.
Or that we see Ethan Peck back as Spock. I mean, these are things that I think most of us want to see. And I think this isn't a cast that hates their job. Or maybe they do. I don't know. But they seem like they would love at some point to come back and re-inhabit these characters down the road.
Yeah. And I think if Paramount Plus's goal is to have 2 Star Trek shows in production with one winding down, if there is to be a second to sort of share the stage with Starfleet Academy, or in this case, quite literally share the sound stages in Toronto across where these 2 shows are filmed, then it feels like you would announce that fairly soon. I mean, definitely if it's the Star Trek Year One thing, because you want to use the same sets, and there's no point keeping those sets up if the show is ending and you're not going to, there's no reason to use those sets anymore. But it's expensive to keep them up because that soundstage space could be used for another production. So I think if this Year One thing is going to happen, we should know that fairly soon. But I think, if another TV show is to happen, probably also know that fairly soon as well, because now's the time to do it. Because unless they're going to decide, you're right, we're just going to do the one Star Trek show thing, or we're going to let another show take that over for a little while. Like if the sort of goal is to kind of keep the core Star Trek team together, you're going to need a something, and they don't have that thing right now. So, maybe that does portend some kind of announcement in 2026, or maybe, the sort of plans for the franchise are evolving and changing in terms of what they want out of it. I mean, that's all just like rabid speculation.
Yeah.
But we'll have to wait and see. I mean, and there's 16 more episodes to go, and I guess that's the reason, you could potentially see why they maybe wouldn't do that. Except for the fact that, you've got to do something with the sound stages if you want to make money off of it. But the reason not to do that is, well, Strange New Worlds is still going to be around until 2027. You don't want to announce something too early that kind of takes steals the spotlight from it. So, maybe, who knows? Well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. But I think the point you made is a really valid one around, it's really nice to see a group of people involved in Star Trek who clearly enjoyed being involved in Star Trek and had a great time with that experience. And so as much as it's bittersweet to see them say goodbye, but it's wonderful to see how much they enjoyed doing it.
Yes, because for any cast of a recent series, and I guess we only have, I can't count the animated because you don't really get to see them. You only hear them. If you go back to Picard, a lot of that cast that we saw in season 1 was gone by season 3. And this cast, though, it's more addition. They're adding cast to it every season and really enhancing it. And I worry that we're going to lose a character at some point in the next 16 episodes that may mean a lot to a lot of people, to those that don't have plot armor. But at the same time, these characters, or these actors really do seem to get off the fact that they've been treated well story-wise, some of them a little later than others, and that they really love what they're doing. And it just, it makes me feel good. And it shows on screen. When you watch it, you can see that there's genuine joy in what they're doing.
Well, at the CCXP convention in Brazil last week, where the first 4-minute clip of Starfleet Academy was unveiled, Paul Giamatti, who plays the season 1 primary villain Noose Braca, gave his most extensive comments yet about the character. Giamatti discussed how much fun it was playing the villain on the show, saying, quote, "You're supposed to have more fun playing a bad guy, and they came to me and said they wanted me to be really over the top, and I'm playing a half Klingon, half Tellarite, and those are really, really aggressive aliens. So I said, I'm going to be really over the top. Are you okay with that? And they said, sure. So I'm really over the top, and I had a lot of fun." Giamatti Giamatti went on to say about how the Klingon Tellarite hybrid nature of the character informed his performance. They said to me, "You can't be a full Klingon because we have a full Klingon, so you're going to be half," he said. So one thing I really remember, they talked about how Klingons have no sense of personal space. So I was always too close to everybody. I would get way too close to everybody all the time. That was the big Klingon move that I wanted to have. And the Tellarites are incredibly argumentative, so there was that. But he's interesting because he's not entirely either one of those things, and he's his own sort of aggressive hybrid, so I was free to actually make up a lot of what I was doing. Giamatti described Braca as, quote, "He is a pirate, kind of. He's a little bit of a pirate. He's kind of got his finger in every kind of criminal activity. He's a smuggler, he's a trafficker of all kinds, and he leads a group called the Venari Ral, who are pirates, basically. So he's been all over the galaxy, he's a lowlife, and he's a nobody who thinks he's somebody. He likes to clown around and play the fool and stuff, but he's a very dangerous psychopath underneath it all." And how did Giamatti do with the famed Star Trek makeup? "I like wearing that stuff," he said. "It makes you feel totally different. I look kind of like a Klingon. I look kind of like a pig, and it's fantastic. They let me have a lot of say in the character. So I wanted to have all these, like, he's got ritual scarring on his face because he's a pirate. He's been all over the galaxy, and he's got his ears clipped and shaped, and he's got the steel things on his hands from all these different alien cultures." Sam, are you excited to see more of Paul Giamatti's performance as Noose Braca?
I'm in the camp of let him cook, rather
Yeah.
let him chew the scenery to bits. I'm a huge fan. And so I don't know what's cooler, because we just got off the story talking about Strange New Worlds. And, you know, when you read a little bit about them, they weren't necessarily fans of Star Trek, but have grown into fans of Star Trek. But then you've got someone like Paul Giamatti, who's been a huge fan of Star Trek, has talked about it for years, wanting to be on Star Trek, and now he gets to be on Star Trek. So I don't know which story is cooler, bringing actors and making them Star Trek fans, or bringing Star Trek fans who are already actors into the fold. So for me, I'm excited to have someone, a pro like Paul Giamatti, who likes the makeup and knows a Klingon and a Tellarite and is excited about being there. I just think it's fantastic to have someone of his caliber who, yes, over the top acting. He's a villain. He's a bad guy. I love it. We've got a big name actor as a villain. It's a classic Star Trek trope at this point, where we have great big actors as the bad guys. And I think is going to be fantastic. I think he's going to bring a lot of fun bad guy stuff to season 1 of Starfleet Academy.
Yeah, and the clip sort of shows us that he is definitely doing an over-the-top performance, which I think is great because it's in the sort of best tradition of a lot of over-the-top Star Trek villain, or I guess over-the-top's probably the wrong word for it, like unhinged Star Trek villain performances, and I mean that in the best possible way.
I picture like an F. Murray Abraham style villain.
Exactly.
Yes,
yeah.
That kind of gravitas, yet a little hammy, but still a little evil.
Yeah, a theatrical villain, right? Like, you know, that sort of, like, I think there's too much made of this idea of 90s Star Trek being very theatrical in the way that it's put together and the way that people speak and the way a lot of stories are constructed. Like, I think there's some truth to that, but I think that's overdone. And, you know, a lot of people who sort of subscribe very much to that are like, well, you don't get that in modern Star Trek, you know, and that's one of the things that makes modern Star Trek inferior to the older style of Star Trek. But, like, a performance like this out of Paul Giamatti is, to my mind, a highly theatrical performance, because on the stage you make everything bigger so that it translates out to the audience who are sitting, you know, 30, 40, 50, even 100 feet away from you. And like, you can kind of see that on the screen in this first clip from the show and in the Starfleet Academy trailer. So I'm really excited for that. And it's Paul Giamatti, right? Like, you know, my favorite Paul Giamatti performances are ones where he is clearly having fun, and this sounds like a set of ingredients for him to have fun with this character. And so I can't wait to see what he does with that.
I could not agree more.
Not too long until we find out, though. Only less than a month now until the premiere of Star Trek Starfleet Academy.
Yes, and he is freshly off a Golden Globe nomination too, so you know he's feeling himself, and I love that.
I mean, we said it a bunch on this show, but like, we can't repeat it enough. It's a Star Trek show with Holly Hunter,
yes,
and Paul Giamatti as two of the like big name draws, plus Robert Picardo, you know, plus Tig Notaro, plus some of these other actors who seem really interesting. I think there's a lot to look forward to here. Well, Tribeca Films have announced they have reached an agreement to distribute a new Star Trek documentary featuring George Takei in February February of next year. Beam Me Up, Sulu from directors Timur Gregory and Sasha Schneider unleash a lost 1985 student film made with Takei, revealing fan history and sharing a larger story of representation, resilience, and the battle for inclusion in media and society. We were interested in figuring out what it is about Star Trek that makes people care so much, what made these student filmmakers spend 35 years making a fan film, what made George participate in it, what makes all of the fans so passionate, Gregory and Schneider said in a statement. We found that it really comes back to this idea of infinite diversity and infinite combinations that's been baked into the show from the beginning and resonates now more than ever. Takei adds, this documentary is about so much more than a student film I appeared in. It's about the importance of diversity and inclusion, something that Star Trek pioneered on television and has excelled at for nearly 60 years. Given the current political climate, we need to see more of that reflected in our popular culture. Beam Me Up Sulu had its world premiere at the 2025 Raindance Film Festival and is set to have its US premiere on February 12th as part of the Tribeca membership screening. In addition to Takei, the film features Alexander Siddig, Christina Chong, Garrett Wong, and Ian Alexander, as well as executive producer Eugene Roddenberry, son of Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry. It will be available for digital purchase on all digital platforms on February the 17th, 2026. Sam, do you think you'll check out Beam Me Up Sulu?
Of course. I think some of the best documentaries have, especially the further we get or the closer we get to 60th anniversary, I think some of the better documentaries have been about the original cast, honestly. The one about Leonard Nimoy.
I Am Spock.
I Am Spock. And then the documentary about Nichelle Nichols was fantastic. So having this look at George, I think is going to be wonderful. And it's refreshing after all the recent news about Star Trek documentaries that there is a documentary that has its act together. So that is a positive thing to have. And as far as George goes, he really, out of the remaining cast that are still with us, he really does speak to the concepts of IDIC. He really is kind of like the spiritual guru behind Gene's vision out of the cast. And to see him continuously touch on and remain relevant in today's political landscape or cultural landscape is important to have a voice like his still come up. And I think it's going to be a great insight into him as a person and to him as someone who's still relevant today.
Yeah, I'm super interested in this documentary for a couple of reasons. First, because I'm just a fan of documentaries that try and understand the Star Trek thing. Like, is this documentary gonna necessarily have anything particularly new or interesting to say about, like, why is Star Trek popular all these years later? Probably not, but I do enjoy whenever anybody does it. It's just one of those things where it's like you could repackage that same different way of sort of approaching Star Trek 50 different times, and I'm going to enthusiastically watch it 50 different times, right? Because to some extent, all of these Star Trek documentaries kind of have at least a splinter of that running through them, if that's not the whole thing they're about. I mean, like, people who listen to this show know Trekkies. I really like Trekkies. Trekkies very dear to me. That's what that's about. William Shatner did. It's not one of the documentaries he did that people talk about in the same vein of The Captains and Chaos on the Bridge, but he also did one about Star Trek fans, which he shot a lot of footage at STLV, and actually I think had some of our friends in it. Like this is sort of a familiar theme for a Star Trek documentary, but you know, like, I'll watch that. But then the second thing is George Takei doing a student film in which he reprises the role of Sulu. Like, I think this thing was recorded in, like, it was between the end of TOS and the motion picture. At this point in time when fandom and the desire for fans to see these actors reprise their, like, role as the character was not highly commercialized, was not this big thing with contracts and agents and all of that stuff. It was just like, you call up the guy and say, hey, you want to be in this student film? And George Takei says yes. I mean, that's crazy even for the time, you know, which is why I think this is a really compelling hook to tell a story about, like, to sort of do a documentary around. Like, that's still pretty nuts, even for the kind of time period that it was in relation to the Star Trek franchise. But it's definitely, like, part of an era of not just Star Trek, but part of an area of entertainment culture that's really long gone. It's not like you could call Chris Evans tomorrow and be like, hey, I'm making a Captain America student film. You want to, you want to come be part of it? Or actually, maybe Chris Evans is right. Like Clark Gregg, who played Agent Coulson in the Avengers, right? Like, a secondary character, secondary actor. If I call Clark Gregg instead of making a student film and I want you to reprise your role as Phil Coulson, he's not going to do that, No. So it's this particular moment in time that I find really fascinating, and I think that there's a line in Galaxy Quest that's inspired by this. Are a few lines like when Tim Allen shows up to he rather than being kidnapped and taken to the NESA protector to save the Thermians, he thinks he's been hired to appear in some like fan film, and he shows up and he's like, wow, this is all very well put together and all that stuff. Like I think this kind of thing that George Takei did is what that like little spoofy scene in Galaxy Quest was referring to. So yeah, I think this is what I'm going to check out, because I'm obviously just from the like comfort food of the what makes Star Trek work angle, but also because of that, like look into a part of the fan culture that feels very inaccessible from 2025.
Absolutely. And you're right. During that time, there was so little. So getting a peek back at that time, it's just going to be really cool.
Well, and lastly this week, the Nacelle company have announced that shipping has started for Wave 1 of their line of 7-inch Star Trek action figures. Nacelle company CEO Brian Volt-Weiss promised the company would ship the first wave in 2025, and they look like they are on course to meet that. I personally can't wait to get my Wave 1 pre-order. In addition, Nacelle have teased an exclusive action figure release for the Star Trek cruise. The figure will be available as an exclusive for the Star Trek cruise, but fear not for those of you who are not going on the cruise like me. The company has revealed that only the packaging is exclusive, and that this character will get a regular release at a later time. Nacelle provided a blurred image of the figure, so we don't know yet for sure what character will be the first Nacelle exclusive, but the character costume and colors certainly seem to indicate an original series Romulan character of some kind. Sam, do the Nacelle company Star Trek action figures hold any interest for you?
They sure do, since I've got 3 of them on pre-order.
Hell yeah, which ones do you get?
I got, from Wave 1, I got Peter Preston and Valkyris.
Yep.
Because I wanted the Genesis device. Not for her specifically, but I wanted the Genesis accessories. And then Wave 2, I got Carol Marcus. So if you notice a trend, it's all Star Trek 2. So as I continue to build my shrine to Star Trek 2, I want X06 to really continue to kick out some Wrath of Khan stuff.
Sure.
That's where I put my money into. So yeah, I'm super excited about those things coming out because I want to see them. I want to hold them.
So you want a Khan, you want a Joachim, you want Captain Terrell, like you want the whole 9 yards.
That's exactly right. So I was a late comer to the merchandise. So I think I had this conversation on this show once a couple of years ago. So I had to be really selective. If I'm going to really get into this, I need to pick out one category, or I'm going to be like you, Alex, and I don't have the space with 7
Don't be
kids
like me.
to be like you. So I said, I'm just going to do Star Trek 2. So in Master Replicas, throughout all the old ships, I made sure to get a big size regular one, or the regular one. I got a big size Reliant. I got the refit Enterprise. So I had those pieces. I want X06 to continue to kick out some Star Trek 2 stuff. And I got these characters. I'm going to just put everything together into the Wrath of Khan, the movie that I first remember when I was a little kid.
Nice. Very, very nice. Yes. I am a cautionary tale, not something to aspire to.
I just don't want to have my kids in another 25 years go, what do we do with all this stuff now that Dad's gone? I don't want to have that.
That's somebody else's problem. Bury me with it. Just dig a giant 100-foot by 100-foot.
Just go dig a Bajoran wormhole and just throw me in.
And just throw me in with it all. I want to be buried like a Chinese emperor.
So in 1,000 years when they dig that up, it's going to be some questions.
Yeah, like a Chinese emperor just buried with all of my things, wearing all of my Star Trek costumes at the same time.
I think there's a body in here somewhere.
Yeah, right. Yeah. In a Star Trek coffin, which was a thing that a company sold for a period of time. You could get a torpedo tube shaped Star Trek branded licensed coffin, which is wild.
Great.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they're not for sale anymore, which is weird because, not to get a little morbid, but like the market for Star Trek coffins has probably never been bigger than it is right now, given it's a 60-year-old franchise.
as we age, that's where we're looking. You know,
Exactly.
I think we can bring. I don't know what the licensing fee on that is, but we could bring that back.
It's going up by 2,000%. All right. All right. Hey, trust me, we're about to talk more about Star Trek merchandise. All right. Well, we've talked about the facts, and now let's offer our opinions on the Star Trek franchise.
Your opinion has been noted. Anything further?
So as we transition from the news section to the opinion section, each week my guests and I will give you a Star Trek opinion, wish, or theory we're nurturing that week about any aspect of the Star Trek franchise we want to opine on. So Sam, let's hear it. What's your big Star Trek opinion for this week?
Well, as I teased at the top, I look back to 2025. I'm looking forward to 2026. Here are some highlights for you.
Yes, sir.
For what I've got coming up in 26. Not only am I excited about Starfleet Academy, we've already talked about that. I'm really looking forward to it. Was not turned off by the poster or the trailer. I'm all in on Starfleet Academy. Not only that, looking forward to Strange New Worlds sometime in 26 in season 4. I've got my 5th Star Trek Day watch that I'll do on September 8th of 2026. I'm excited about that. We just touched on Nacelle and XO6. I want to get more of that and build my shrine to the Wrath of Khan. But the thing that I'm most excited for is the investment that I made in tickets to Las Vegas for the 60th anniversary.
Oh, yeah!
Of Star Trek. So I've only been to one con before, and that was in Chicago a few years back. And I said, screw it, I cannot miss the 60th. And looking at the map of where the seats were at, nobody else can miss it either. So huge. Right. I did not get miffed that, a month 6 weeks later after I bought my tickets that they went on slight sale for Black Friday. But anyway, very slight sale. Doesn't make a big difference. So I'm super excited, super stoked to get out there to the big con for the 60th anniversary. This is going to be a great year, 2026. And I am very optimistic that we're going to get some great news in 26 about the future of Star Trek. I'm not going to be a naysayer or, the second age of Star Trek is now going to pat. No, none of that crap. I am excited and fired up to be a Star Trek fan. And I think 26 is going to give us some big, big stuff. Good stuff on the way.
Sam, I'm thrilled. It's been a long time since Chicago, so I'm looking forward to seeing you in Vegas.
I'm looking forward to getting out there. I'm really excited about seeing friends, seeing Star Trek fans, seeing Star Trek folks. It's just going to be great. And I haven't been to Vegas in a few years on my own, so this is going to be huge for me.
A real Star Trek bachelor trip.
That's it.
That is very, very cool. Very exciting. Yeah, I mean, it's the 60th anniversary. There is a lot to look forward to. It kicks off with 10 weeks of Star Trek in January. There's 10 more weeks of Star Trek later in the year. Anything else that the 60th anniversary has to serve up. But I mean, the last time I said this on a recent show, I was sort of thinking about it and looking back at it. The last time we had a big anniversary year where there was a Star Trek show on TV for was the 30th anniversary in 1996. That's a
long time ago.
Yeah, like having 2 shows on feels a little thin for where we've been over the last 5 years, but for an anniversary year compared to a lot of previous anniversary years, it's a lot better. So I think embracing it and embracing the Star Trek that we'll be receiving and all the stuff that hopefully will be happening that we don't really even know about or comprehend yet will be very, very exciting. All right, well, you have set me up to bring us right back down, and I should just end the show here because we're ending on a high note, and I shouldn't do what I'm about to do, but I am going to talk a little bit about something which is my first kind of oar in the water of criticism for the new Paramount Skydance regime and their handling of Star Trek. And not the shows, because we don't yet really know what shows are coming from Paramount Skydance and the new leadership that is over Paramount Plus. I want to talk about the way that I think Paramount is badly misunderstanding the Star Trek franchise as it relates to merchandising. And so this story's been going around a lot this past week because Retrospect Studios put up a post on Facebook on Monday saying that they're a very small company run by one very nice lady, Kavita, who has for the last few years been selling prints of her Star Trek paintings that are licensed. So licensed prints that you could buy of her Star Trek paintings. And on Monday, she put a post on Facebook saying that she was not renewing her license with Paramount Skydance because Paramount had proposed in the renewal terms a 2,000% increase in the amount of money that she would owe to Paramount for having the license.
Jeez.
And that the 2000 was not a typo. That was actually what the like increase was. And obviously she was not in a position to pay that and therefore was ending the license. And so, you know, was only able to continue selling the prints for the duration of the remainder of the license, which I think was like a month. So, you know, if you've been eyeing one of those prints, they're like $100 prints, but they're really high quality prints of really fabulous paintings. You shouldn't wait because you're not going to have the, she will still do like commissioned paintings. There's nothing, you know, sort of untoward about her doing that, but the prints are going away. The Star Trek prints are going away because of her not renewing the license. And there's a lot of people talking about this and criticizing it and really fixating on the 2000% number and her sort of making all of this public. She's not the only licensee who has been facing issues with Skydance around renewal costs. Others have folded and decided to walk away from doing Star Trek. Other big one that recently announced they were also not continuing is Hero Within, the company that had been at STLV making Star Trek licensed jackets. They sort of also kind of moved into the like semi kind of cosplay space because they were still jackets, but they were doing jackets that were like the Voyager uniform top and the Deep Space Nine uniform top. And
That Picard season 3 leather jackets were fantastic.
Exactly. Yes. They recently announced they are also not renewing their license. And I know from having talked to other licensees, they are not the only ones who have been faced with big increases in costs. Skydance, since taking over Paramount, it seems, have changed the licensing structure and now are not really interested in the small companies who want to sell Star Trek stuff. They're really only interested in the big companies who want to sell Star Trek stuff. And that's why, you know, when Retrospect Studios goes to renew their license, their minimum guarantee goes up by 2000%. Because the way, as I understand it, these licensing deals work is you're a company, you want to make a product and sell a product that says Star Trek on it. You sign a deal with the owner of the rights to Star Trek, that being Paramount Skydance, to give them a percentage of every sale, but you also, as part of that, guarantee a minimum amount of money you're going to pay them. So, you know, that minimum, if you sell enough that you hit the minimum just off of the percentage, great. But if you don't sell enough, you have to pay out of your own pocket to hit the minimum. So a small firm like Retrospect Studios, I have no concept of what their sales were or anything like that. But like, let's say you're a random, let's say I wanted to do a Star Trek company tomorrow and I had $50,000 a year worth of sales, but Paramount's minimum guarantee was $100,000. It doesn't make sense for me to get that license because I'm going to sell 50,000 and I owe them 100,000. So not only am I not making any money at all, I'm also having to pay them $50,000 out of my own pocket in order to meet the minimum guarantee as part of the licensing deal. And so what it sounds like has happened is Paramount Skydance have significantly raised those minimum guarantees, which means that your really small licensees like your Heroes Within, who were really only selling at conventions. They would go to a convention, you would pre-order it at the convention, then they would ship it to you several months later. You could do them online every now and again, but mostly it was sort of sales at the convention. You know, like that's a small business operation. Same as the they're like Retrospect sold prints. It was a big variety of prints, but it was still ultimately just prints, and they were kind of pricey prints. So, you know, I doubt their sales were particularly high. And so in one breath, we're celebrating Star Trek's arrival to Lego, and Lego's a company that can hit the minimum guarantee for Star Trek, no doubt about it. But also at the same time now, the smaller licensees are walking away. And I think that's a huge mistake by the company because I think they are treating treating the Star Trek property like it is a Marvel or a Star Wars where, oh, we're not going to bother with the small dollar contracts because there are big dollar contracts out there where there are big sort of sales numbers that are on offer. And therefore, like, we're gonna, we're not going to bother going through the process of licensing to really small companies because it's not worth our time and effort, for all of the legal contracting stuff. We're only looking for $100,000, $200,000 minimum guarantee or whatever it is, right? Like $1 million or 10. I have no idea what the sort of scale of numbers we're talking about here. And I think that's bad. I think that's a bad choice because we were really just entering a moment in time when, the Star Trek fan base is smaller, but Star Trek merchandise was really starting to respond to what fans wanted and give them what they wanted. And honestly, a lot of what has made that possible is fans who want to make this stuff for themselves, and we happen to benefit from doing that. If folks who listen to the show all the time have heard my theory about, like, the reason things are great right now with your Nanjin Tams and your Brian Volk-Weisses and your Ben Robertsons of the world is because they are huge Star Trek fans who are making the stuff because it's what they want. And we are benefiting from that because they are Star Trek fans rather than its playmates thinking they know the Star Trek audience, completely whiffing on it and immediately getting out. And I think what Skydance is doing is crowding out. Now, Nacelle has said they're totally fine for the foreseeable future. Nanjin said he's only making 2 more years worth of Star Trek 1/6 action figures anyway, so he's going to complete his mission. Master Replicas has got loads of plans moving forward, so me mentioning those 3 companies is not to say that anybody should be worried about those companies or whether their license for Star Trek is going to continue, but it's who are the 4th, 5th, and 6th guys or gals who, are coming down saying, I have a really great idea for a Star Trek product that I've always wanted. I'm not going to make a ton of money off of it, but I want this thing more than I want big profits. Therefore, I'm going to get this Star Trek license to do it. Now, with the way these deals seem like they're being structured, they're really sort of preferencing the folks who are like, well, we just want to make a bunch of money off of this. And that's where the bad Star Trek merchandise comes from. So I'm a little afraid, again, not about all the stuff we have right now, but what are the products we could have gotten in 28 and 29 and 2030 that maybe we're not going to get because Skydance has overestimated the size of the Star Trek fan audience. And I think that's a mistake because it's one thing if you're going to want to make $10 million and you can sell enough to make $10 million. But if you want to make $10 million and there's no one who can sell $10 million worth of stuff, you've made $0. And so it's better to make $1 million or $2 million than it is to make $0, even if your goal or your dream is to make $10 million. And I think Skydance is saying we're shooting for $10 million and they're going to end up finding they'll make 0 in the process. And I think that's a deeply frustrating, misguided decision that demonstrates, at least on the licensing side, a deep misunderstanding of the size, reach, and scope of the Star Trek fan base. And I think it's one they're going to have to learn their way out of the hard way, but it's going to suck for us as fans because it's going to mean that, this sort of golden age of Star Trek merchandising that it felt like we were just entering, there's still going to be a lot of great stuff coming. It's just not going to be quite as much great stuff as it otherwise could have been.
Alex, you're right. And that's like the toe in the water of what it could be on the bad side of what this Paramount Skydance deal has been. So it seems like Paramount was in the last few years, as we were ascending, very open to doing things and allowing fans to explore and merchandise to roll. And now with a new sheriff in town, I think I think we might see some more of this before we see it get better.
Yeah. Sadly, I think that's right. And it sucks, like they should be smart enough to know not to do this, but unfortunately, I don't think they are.
Yeah.
Do you have an opinion, theory, or wish about Star Trek that you'd like to share? Email them to me at weeklytrek@trekcore.com, and I might feature your thoughts in a future episode. Well, that's all the time we've got for this episode of Weekly Trek. Thank you so much to my guest, Sam Nelson, for joining me today. Sam, how can people contact you if they want to continue the conversation?
Oh, I'm on Blue Sky, but I did listen to your episode last week, so message me or don't message me. It doesn't bother me. No, Blue Sky, SL Nelson, at SL Nelson77.
Put a piece of paper in a glass bottle and toss it into the ocean.
And hope for the best.
Yeah, right. You can find this show on X at Weekly Trek and me at Alexander T. Perry on X and at Alex T. Perry on Blue Sky and everywhere else. And if you enjoy the show, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast player of choice. And for all your Star Trek news needs, in addition to our extensive media archives of all things Star Trek, I hope you will keep your senses locked to TrekCore.com. Well, thank you, Sam. Thank you to all of my listeners. And until next week, live long and prosper. Weekly Trek is a production of TrekCore.com and owned by Trapezoid Media, LLC.